Hi everyone, and welcome on this very useful and very simple tutorial that we're going to make today. Here is what we're going to get at the end of this tutorial. So you've got the basic idea of what we are doing. We've got these nice light trails that reveal a real logo that we had before, and these light trails have been created with Trapcode particular plugin for Adobe After Effects. We've also used the plugin called Optical flares to create these nice realistic flares easily, and we've animated our camera movement using the plugin Show Target, and that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. We're going to animate these nice light trails using the auto trace function from Adobe After Effects, so that we're going to be able to reveal our real logo at the end of the animation. You have to launch Adobe After Effects, and right into Adobe After Effects we're going to create a new composition. But before that, I'm just going to show you basically what we are doing in this tutorial. Here I've got a composition which will be basically the composition that we're going to be working on in a few minutes. As you can see, I could create in this composition maybe a new solid. I'm going to draw on that solid a shape using the pen tool, and I'm going to draw a really rough shape. Actually, we don't care about what's drawn, it's just to show you what we are doing here. And now in that solid I can hit M on my keyboard, so I've got my mask path that I've just created here. I can copy that, and I'm going to paste that to the position of my emitter light here. And doing that, as you can see, my emitter light has taken the motion path of my mask 1. And doing that, we can then hide our black solid, and as you can see, and maybe also the masks, and as you can see here, I've got this nice light trail that follow the masks that I've done earlier, but it's really ugly. And in this tutorial we're going to be able to follow the shape of our real logo that we had from a JPEG picture or any picture you have on your computer, and that's what we're going to do just right now. So the first thing you have to do at this point is to create a new composition. So let's get back to your project. Here in this tutorial I'm going to keep everything that I have done earlier, but don't worry about that. I won't click anywhere and do anything without telling you. So the first thing we want to do is to create a new composition. And in this project I'm going to work in a 720 composition, but obviously you could work on a 1080 or even any format you need to work with. It would work just as well. We're going to rename that composition E, because we're going to make a composition for each letter that we're going to have to animate. So here the first letter would be the E, and just get the parameters you need. Maybe you want that to last at least 10 seconds. Just hit OK. And now we're going to select the picture that we have selected earlier in Google, and we're going to drag that down into our composition. And sometimes just like here, maybe the picture would be completely upscaled and you wouldn't see anything. So just select your layer, hit S on your keyboard, and then you can scale it down so that it could fit better in your frame. We're going to just zoom in a little bit, and we're going to give this element, the picture element, the position that is going to have in the final shot. So maybe we want that to be scaled just a bit up like that, and you can use even the title action save function here so that you're going to be able to center that easily in the frame using the parameters above the frame. Scale that up just a little bit like that, so that it fits better in the frame. Now we're going to use the auto trace function. So select your layer, go to the layer menu here, and auto trace. Here we're going to make a few adjustments. Obviously you want to see what you're doing, so check the preview checkbox here so that you can see what's happening. And as you can see, Adobe After Effects is creating masks over the elements of our picture, and here we're working on a luminance field, not on the alpha field. So change that to luminance and modify the threshold to 50%, corner roundness to 20%, and you can adjust these parameters with the picture that you are working on, and then hit OK. So now Adobe After Effects has created another layer, as you can see here, and if you select this layer and hit M on your keyboard, you can see that we've got all these masks that have been created, and here we're going to work with all of them. We're just going to use a few of them to make our animation. So at this point, maybe you can select the layer that you're going to work with and see which one has been selected into your element here. As you can see here, for my E letter, I can see that this is a mask 6. I'm going to remember that, and we're going to go back to that in a few moments. Now I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to create a new solid. We're going to rename that solid Particles E1, and don't worry about the size or even the color, it doesn't matter at this point. Hit OK. We're going to go ahead and create a new light, and you want that to be a point light, and don't worry about the color, doesn't matter in our project, and you just want that to be renamed emitter. That's really important because Trapcode particular just work this way, and that's what we're going to see in a second. We're going to give our solid particles E1 the effect Trapcode particular, and as you can see, if you go further in the shot, we can see here that we've got our particles that are emitted everywhere. We're going to change that, and also we've got a light here, and if I move the light, the particles don't follow it, and that's what we're going to change just right now. Select your particles layer here, and into the emitter parameter here, we're going to define the emitter type to lights, so that you can see now that if I move my light, I can also move my particles, and that's going to be really useful for what we're going to do just right now. And we're going to make a few adjustments here so that our particles are going to look a bit better. We're going to modify the velocity to 0, even the velocity random. Actually, we're going to drag that everything to 0, so that, as you can see here, we just have now a small point, and now that's the point where we're going to take the parameters of this particular mask. So select the auto traced ESL or even the picture that you have chosen and hit M on your keyboard. Go back to the mask 6 or the mask that you are working on and select the mask path and hit Ctrl C on your keyboard or edit copy, and then let's get back to your emitter, which is your light actually. And remember, if we move our light, we also move our particles, and we're going to hit P so that it reveals the position parameter. We're going to get back at the first frame, and here we're going to hit Ctrl V. So now you can see that Adobe After Effects has pasted the frames of our mask to the position parameters of our emitter light, and if we zoom out just a little bit, you can see here that we've got our E letter, which is here, and it's a bit above the frame. It's not a problem because we could obviously select our frames and drag that up so that it could fit better in the frame. And as you can see, it hasn't created that into the scale that we had defined earlier. It means that the E letter on the background doesn't fit the path that we have just created, the path of our light. And that's not a problem because we could at this point create a new camera into our project. So let's get back here and create a new camera. Maybe for this project you would like that to be a 28mm. It means that it's going to have a wide angle and it's not bad, so it's okay. And now you can use the camera function in your frame so that you're going to be able to scale the path better into your background picture. It means that select your active camera window and use the camera functions here. You can see that I can move on my Z axis. It means basically that I can zoom in or zoom out, and with my emitter selected, with that I can adjust that, and then I'm going to be able to move the frames. So Here I'm going to hit hue. I have all the frames that appear. I can select them all. Maybe I can select a square here, so I can move that completely, and it's going to perfectly fit the background layer. We're going to make a few adjustments now to our particles. Obviously we want that to be maybe 800 or 900 particles per second, so that is going to have this nice trail that is going to appear. And we're going to make a few adjustments here as well in the particles menu. But before that, we're going to check that everything here is basically to 0. So check that the emitter size, even on the z-axis, is on 0. So that if you solo your particles, now you can see that we've got our E letter that appears, and that's basically will be the final animation. So that's nice. You can unsolo that to see what you're doing, or maybe you can solo that to see what you're doing. Just work the way you want. And we're going to make a few more adjustments on the particles menu here. We're going to obviously modify the life in seconds. It means that we want that to last at least 10 seconds because our composition lasts 10 seconds. And we also want to adjust the opacity. Maybe we're going to modify that to 30%. Or 30, and that will be nice for this one. We can modify the color, and for this project we're going to define the color at birth, and maybe for this project we're going to select a nice blue, just like this one here, maybe a bit clearer, and that's nice. So now we've got our healer that appears, and obviously here we want that to be a bit better, and we're going to give that particles layer a glow effect. So here in effect, go in stylize, then glow. We're going to modify that just a bit. It means that we're going to modify the glow threshold to 50%, and we're going to give him the radius to 40 maybe, and adjust the intensity to 0.7, so that we've got this nice but not too big effect that has been applied. And now we can go ahead and we're going to duplicate our particles layer here, and we're going to change the parameter in the emitter particles, and even we're going to modify the physics of this layer, so that is going to be at the background and even have some randomness in its trails, and that's what we're going to see just right now. And in this second layer we're going to modify the size of the particles. We're going to scale it down. We're going to adjust that maybe to 3, and we're also going to modify the color. You can obviously change the color because it's another particles system. Maybe you want that to be a bit darker, and here in this project we're going to work with blue and green, so I'm going to make it just a green like that. And don't worry, we're going to change the physics parameter, so just go ahead, go to physics, air, and we're going to modify the turbulence field parameters here. So just go back here, and we're going to make a few adjustments. So we're going to modify the spin frequency. We're going to make that to 25, and even the fading speed in seconds, we're going to make it last 40, maybe 40 seconds. And you can go further in your shot, see what's happening right here. So go at the last frame, and we're going to modify the effect size and effect position. Maybe effect size, we're going to drag that up to 6, and maybe the effect position to 50. Let's see what's happening. So now basically you can see what's happening in your shot. It means that we've got our first layer which is perfectly fit on our background picture, as you can see here, and at the background we've got the second particle system which has some randomness, and it will be nice. Then you could even play on the opacity of this second layer. You can maybe drag the opacity down to 20, so that is going to be a bit different from the first one. And now you can see that we have nearly finished our first layer here. It means that we're going to add the flares, and for the E letter it will be over. I'm going to hide the background picture here, and also this auto trace layer here, so that I can see better what I'm doing. I can hide the title action safe so that I can see better. You can check the animation process. It seems nice. And now we're going to add a flare to our letter, so we're going to go ahead and create a new solid. We're going to rename that Optical Flare, or maybe just Flare, but here we're working with the plugin Optical Flare, just as I told you in the introduction. So select your layer, go to Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flare, and as you can see, I've got my flare, but I don't see anything at the background. That's because you have to change the render mode here and drag it to untransparent. So now you can see that I can drag my flare, and I can see even my E letter which is on the background. And now what can I do to animate my flare so that it's going to have the same path? Well, we're going to do just the same thing that we've did for the particles. It means that we're going to tell optical flares that we want to track lights. So here in the source type, just go here and track lights. So now you can see that my flare is perfectly tracked on my E letter that appears, and that's going to be perfect. At this point, maybe you could play with the opacity and the brightness of your optical flare layer. It means that we're going to add that to edit some flicker parameters here. That's what we're going to do just right now. So go to the flicker menu here on the left, and we're going to modify the speed maybe to 25, and we're going to give an amount of 100. So now you can see that the light brights up, and then it's going to be shiny here, and it's got some randomness, and that's like something which would be scribed live, and that's a nice effect, I think. And for the E letter, I told you that you can play with the brightness or even of the scale. It means that when the letter has been written, we don't need this flare anymore. So maybe we can animate this brightness maybe here at the end of the appearance of the E letter, and just hit on the chronometer here, make a keyframe. You can reveal that in a timeline, right clicking on that and reveal in timeline, so you can see here, and go at the end of the letter and drag that down to 0. So now if you go back, you can see that the flare disappears when it needs to disappear, and now we're finished for our E letter. And we're going to go ahead and do basically exactly the same thing for the S and the L letters, but as you can see, because the emitter light and the particles are actually basically the same object, because our particles track lights and even our flare track lights, and our light already has its position parameters properties, we need to create a new composition for each letter that we want to animate. It means that we're going to get back here in our project, and we're going to create a new composition, and we're going to rename that composition S, and we're going to make it the same size that the first composition. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. And now here in our new composition, basically what we have to do would be to copy all the layers that we have created in our first composition for the E letter. We're going to select them all, hit Ctrl C or edit copy, and we're going to go to our new composition and paste them all. And we're just going to give our emitter position parameters the new ones. It means that we're going to select our auto trace layer here. We're going to select the S mask, so I'm going to select my layer, hit M on the keyboard, and I'm going to select the S letter. I can see that this is the mask 5. I'm going to copy the mask path parameters, so select that, hit Ctrl C. Maybe you can hide that. We're going to go ahead, select our emitter light. We're going to delete all the keyframes that we add in the first composition, and you select the position parameters and hit Control V. So now you can see that I've got my S letter, and just like in the first composition, you can see that the letter is not centered in the frame. Don't worry about that, you just have to select a square here, and maybe you'll be able to modify the position. And if it does the thing that it has done here for me, you can hit Control Z on your keyboard and select all the keyframes and drag that up. So now we can modify that, and we're going to make the final picture appear so that we're going to see better what we are doing. And I'm going to select my emitter layer here so that I can see my keyframes and the motion path that is being created. And we're going to, just like in the first composition, we're going to play with the zoom in or zoom out of the camera, so you can hit C on your keyboard or even go there so that you can move your camera on the Z axis, basically like a dolly. And then you can maybe modify that. We're going to select all our keyframes, and using the arrow tool, we're going to move that the way we need to be adjusted. So you can zoom in just a little bit, select your emitter layer, select all your keyframes, and we're going to move that up so that we're going to fit that on the background layer. As you can see, I have to zoom in just a little bit, and I can even move that up. So now my S perfectly fits the background picture. I can hide that, and I can even solo my two particles layer, so I'm going to see better what I'm doing. And as you can see, the S appears, and it's going to be perfect for the end of the shot. We're going to do just as well for the L letter, so we're going to go ahead, let's get back to our project, and we could even do another method. It means that we could select our composition here, and we can hit Control C and then Control V, so that you can see it has created another composition, an S composition here. It has created an S2 composition. We're going to rename that using a return on our keyboard. We're going to rename that L, and maybe a big L. That would be better. And we're going to go ahead, and in this composition we just want to do the same thing. It means that we're going to select the L letter here. We're going to go back here, hit M, select the L letter so that we're going to see which mask it is. We can see that it is a mask 7. You're going to select the mask path parameters, hit Control C on your keyboard, and let's go ahead, select your emitter, hit P on your keyboard to reveal the position parameters, select the frames that we have created earlier for the S letter, hit delete on your keyboard, and then select the position, hit Control V, and now we've got our L, and we're going to move that up so that it's going to fit better in our frame and with our final picture. And we're going to move that up on the right, and we're going to make that fit better with our final picture. So we're going to make that appear here, and that would be perfect. So now you can see that I've got my final picture on the background, and if I go ahead, you can see that I can just hide the background picture, and you can see that we've got our L that appears with these nice two different particle systems that appear. And now we just need to create our final composition. We're going to go ahead and hit here and create the final composition. We want that to be the same size of the other parameters. Just hit OK, and we're going to go ahead, we're going to select our elements, our composition that we have created earlier, and we're going to drag them down to our final composition so that we're going to see better what we are doing. So here I just needed to see which composition I needed because I made a project earlier, and here you can see that everything is working perfectly. And maybe you can obviously add flares to the other letters, so you can select them go there, and here you can make it appear, and that's what you need to do in your own project. I mean, you don't have to do that the way I did here. And here you can see that we've got something which is really nice. And now we're going to animate our camera movement so that we're going to have some dramatic effect to that. It would be a bit better, because here everything is a bit static, and that's not the way we want to work. You can obviously change the flares. Going back to your composition later, you can select your flare here and go to the FX control, and to optical flares go into options. And optical flares is magic. I mean, you've got a bunch of nice, really nice flares. This one actually is a nice one. Maybe you can choose that, and so that in your final composition it would be a bit more discreet with this one. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to animate our camera movement. And to do that, to animate everything, we're going to use Sure Target. And I know that we don't have to use Sure Target each time we're working with cameras, but here in this tutorial I just wanted to show you why we're using Sure Target. It means that we're going to go a bit further that Video Copilot goes using their plugins. It means that we're going to animate the anchor point for each composition that we have created, and so that is going to give our camera movement something more, and that's not so bad. So we're going to just go ahead and play with Sure Target. We're going to go ahead and create a new null object, and it return on your keyboard so that you can rename your layer. We're going to rename that Sure Target, and we're going to apply to this null object the effect Sure Target. What a surprise. And here we're going to make a few adjustments. Obviously, the first thing we want to do is to define the target layers, and here in this project it's not really hard. You can see that the first one would be the E, and as you can see, Sure Target tells you that the layer needs to be 3D. It means that we're going to select our layer and hit the 3D parameters here, and if you don't have that, if it's hidden just like here, just hit F4 on your keyboard so that it appears, and then check the 3D box here so that the layer is now in 3D. We can then choose our Sure Target layer, and let's get back here to define the target layers. We're going to choose E for the first one, S for the second one, and L for the third one. So let's go ahead and animate that. We're going to choose our Sure Target layer, and we're going to drag down the effects menu, then Sure Target, so that we can see all the parameters that Sure Target have here. And we're going to go ahead and drag down the dolly menu here, and we're going to enable dolly, and we're going to zoom in for the dolly one, which corresponds, remember, to the E letter, which is the target one. And as you can see here on Sure Target, I'm on the layer 1 at this particular moment. So I'm going to zoom in using the dolly function, which is enabled, remember. And as you can see now, I can zoom in or zoom out in my layer, but I'm not zooming into my E letter, and that's just because I have to select my E letter composition here, and using the key Y on my keyboard, now I can move my anchor point. And as you can see, because Sure Target is tracked to the anchor point, if I move the anchor point, actually I can move the camera. And that's going to be really useful, because if I select my layer and I drag down the transform options and then the anchor point and the position, I can animate that, and that's going to be really, really useful. So let's go back here at the beginning of the shot, and as you can see, we've got a problem. The problem is that my flares here are obviously too big. It means that here I can see the border of my composition. That's because if I select my layer and I move the anchor point, you can see that I move the composition, and it means that I see the borders. And to change that, I'm going to modify the parameters of my flares. It means that I'm going to get back here to my E letter, and I'm just going to modify maybe the brightness. Remember, we have animated that, so I'm going to reveal that in the timeline to see what I'm doing with. Okay, we have done that, so I'm just going to add in here for this frame I'm going to modify the brightness maybe to 50%, and here we're going to do the exact same thing for the other flares. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to delete that, Control V, and same thing for the L, delete the actual flare that you have created and paste the one that you have modified for the E letter, so that is going to be a bit better. Let's go back to our final composition and see what appears. And as you can see, it's a bit better. Here at this moment on the border I've got a problem. I can maybe adjust that, adding a mask to my E letter here. I can select that, and let's get back here to the shape function. I can maybe use an ellipse tool. I can double click on that, and maybe I can feather that mask just a little bit, so it's going to fit better in the frame, I hope. This way you can hide the mask and see what's happening. So now it's a bit better, and obviously if you use flares and maybe lights, this would be the problem that you will have, but as you can see we can maybe adjust like just a little bit and it works just perfectly. So now I can choose my E letter, hit Y on my keyboard to move the anchor point, and I can center that the way I want. I'm going to go back to the first frame because I would like my camera movement to follow these light trails just like we had in our final render. Remember, this is the one I've done earlier, and as you can see at the beginning of the shot my camera follows these light trails as it goes down, and that's what we're going to do just in right here in this project. I'm going to go ahead and selecting my short target layer, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit like that, zoom it, maybe make it that fit here, and we're going to go ahead. As you can see, maybe I can select my E composition, hit Y to move the anchor point, and I'm going to center that to the frame, and we're going to animate the anchor point. It means that we need to select this in our E letter, so drag that down and go to transform, and then you've got the anchor point. We're going to check to hit the chronometer here, and we're going to go ahead and move our anchor point as we're going to go further in the shot, and we're going to follow this light trail. So now to 1 second I can maybe drag down my anchor point, and 1 second actually was really fast, so I'm going to, let's get back here, and as you can see now I've got a camera movement because I've created this keyframe by moving my anchor point, and here I can obviously see that it's too slow, so maybe I can go a bit further, and now I'm here. I'm just going to go ahead, I just have to go on the right here, so select your anchor point and drag that here to the right, and you can obviously also play with the zoom of your camera if you want. It means that you could maybe zoom in or zoom out when you need that. Here we can see, if I go back to my shot, that we follow perfectly our light trail, and that's nice. That's a nice dramatic animation. And if we zoom out, it means that if we drag that down, if we go further in the shot, we could maybe make the S letter, we could drag that down here on the right, so it's going to start to appear just at this particular moment. And even for the L letter, we could just drag that down a bit here. So now what have we got to do? We're going to define short target. We're going to tell him then we're going to go from maybe there to this point. We're going to animate short target, so hit the chronometer here, and now we're going to go to our second layer, which is, remember, the letter S. So if I do that during this time lapse, I'm just going back to my second target, and because my second target has not even has not any zoom in or zoom out parameters, I'm just going to go ahead and play with that, because at this point I don't want to see everything. I just want to see my letter that appears, and here you can see that it starts to appear here. So let's go ahead, and we're just going to do just the same thing that we did for the E letter. It means that we're going to make appear the anchor point here, and we're going to animate that. So I'm going to hit the chronometer here, I'm going to go further in the shot, and I'm going to follow my light trail here. I'm going to hit Y on my keyboard, and so that I can animate the anchor point and I can follow that. Maybe you could even play on the zoom as I told you before, and here we have to follow our light trail just like that. Let's go ahead, and as it goes up, we're going to go up just as well. Select your anchor point, we're going to get here, and let's go ahead. We can see that it's perfect. Let's go ahead, we're going to tell short target that now we need to animate our third target. So from this point here, we're going to add a keyframe to short target, and let's go further in the shot. We're going to the letter L, which is the target 3, and now we're good. If we go back to the beginning of the shot, we've got our wall animation. We're going to make that fit a bit better so that we can see. We've got our wall animation, which follows the nice trails, the nice light trails with our flares, and we've been able to modify the anchor point position so that we can follow the trail that we have drawn automatically using the auto trace function. And now when we go to the third layer, which is the letter L, because we haven't any zoom, maybe I can also I can make the zoom to 0 here. We don't have any zoom parameters, and the anchor point is the same as the origin. Now we are back with our 3 letters that are perfectly fit into our shot, and we're just going ahead and we're going to modify some parameters to our optical flares here. It means that for a reason I don't know why, we have to move these 2 keyframes here to the end of the appearance of the letter S, and even for the L, select your optical flare, hit U, and then drag these 2 keyframes at the end. Maybe earlier in this tutorial I didn't tell you to do that. So now our flare, we can see our flares through the entire shot, and it's better. And now we could maybe add our final picture at the background. We would like that to appear. And what we're going to do is that we're going to go back to our E letter. We're going to select the picture that we had at the beginning of this tutorial. We're going to hit Ctrl C, and we're going to go back to our final composition, hit Ctrl V, and now the picture appears. We're going to make that appear. We're going to drag that down at the end of the composition so that it's going to be on the background. Here obviously you have to center that so that it's going to fit better on the letters that we have drawn. Obviously you could even play on the scale of this picture. Maybe you can adjust that the way you want so that it's going to fit better on what we have done earlier. And here basically what we have to do, it's nearly finished. I mean, maybe we're going to play on the fusion modes of this composition here so that it's going to have a nice look. And now we're going to play on the opacity of this ESL.png file here. We're going to select this layer and hit T to reveal the opacity parameters. And once our L letter is completely drawn, we're going to make that appear. It means that before that moment we want the picture to be at 0% of opacity, and from this point here we're going to animate the opacity, and we're going to go further in the shot, and we're going to drag that up to 100%. So now if I go back, I can see that I've got my animation. I don't see the background picture, and when all the letters are drawn, my final logo appears. And because we're going to hide all our layers, we're going to select them here, and so it's Shift to select them all, it's T, and when our picture starts to appear, they are going to start to disappear. So add a keyframe for the opacity here, and then right here you're going to drag that down to 0. So now our particle systems disappear when our final logo appears. And then you could even animate your final logo so that you could see it everywhere, because if you zoom out you can see that all the logo is not centered in the frame. So maybe we could tell SureTarget that our first target is the ESL.png layer, which needs to be 3D. And now that our layer is in 3D, we can go back to SureTarget and define the first layer to the ESL.png file. So check that. And so now, what can we do? Well, from this point, we just want to zoom out the dolly of our first target here. And as you can see, I've already moved that. So if we go back here to SureTarget at this particular moment, when everything is drawn and when the logo has appeared, we can add a keyframe here to SureTarget. We can go further in the shot and tell him that now we are on the fourth layer here, so hit 4. And now, as you can see, we are back in our fourth layer. It means that automatically it's going to zoom out if you have zoomed out to your dolly for parameters. As you can see here, I've got a value of minus 1750, and so that it's going to zoom out just a little bit. But as you can see here, and it's not I didn't do that for any reason, this logo is vertical and our project is horizontal, so it means that we're going to have to adjust the anchor point even for this final picture here. It means that from this point here, when it starts to zoom out, we're going to select our ESL.png file and we're going to drag down the menu here. We're going to animate the anchor point and even also the position for the picture. So we are going to add a keyframe for these both elements here, and we're going to go further in the shot till the zoom out is finished. And now we can hit Y on our keyboard, and then we can drag that down just a little bit like that. We're going to modify the value of the dolly 4 here. We're going to zoom out a bit more so that we can see everything, and even we're going to modify the anchor point, even the position. We're going to drag that down just a little bit like that, and it's going to be perfect, because now, as you can see, when the logo appears, it zooms out and then we can see everything. And basically here you are done. It means that if we go back at the beginning of the shot, we have got our wall animation which is finished. As you can see here, we can follow the light trails, then we go back to the S layer and then we zoom out so that we can see everything. The logo appears and then it goes back so that we can see everything. So what have we done in this tutorial? Well, we have created these nice light trails using Trapcode Particular plugin. We have taken the properties of a mask path to give our light this motion path, which is perfectly tracked on the final logo. We have created a composition for each letter and we have combined them in a final composition, and this is in this final composition that we have used SureTarget to animate the anchor point for each composition, and then we have been able to follow these nice light trails. Well, we have finished this tutorial. It was pretty cool, pretty simple to have a great result. I hope you enjoyed that. And so let's go back to the YouTube channel, see all the tutorials made by Barcode. You have this really nice 3D tracking tutorial that I've made earlier, and that's all. So I hope you enjoyed that, and let's see you in another tutorial. Bye.